Alright, so hey guys, this video was supposed to go up like 2 CCs ago, as you can see by the source footage, but real life caught up and I had a lot of deadlines to meet. So here I am, better late than never, right? But enough about that, you guys clicked this video for the theory, so let's talk about it. Honestly speaking, this theory might get a little weird. You already know from the title and thumbnail, or if you watched and lasted until the end of my last video, the focus today is going to be shifting to Amiya. And in this video, I'm going to propose a wild thought. What if Theresa is currently within Amiya, slumbering and waiting to possess her in the future? What? Isn't Theresa dead? I hear you ask. Or maybe you didn't, but let's just go with the flow. My answer to that is yes. Yes, she is. But hear me out. Theresa might be dead, but maybe, just maybe, she might have transferred her presence to Amiya and is waiting to be reawakened. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is Amiya might be in a similar situation as our favorite reunion leader, Tallulah. Tallulah, in case you need a refresher, was Duke Koschei's daughter, and throughout her entire life was slowly being cursed by her father until his eventual death at her very hands. However, before dying, Koschei revealed that if Tallulah were to ever lose faith in her ideals at any point in the future, the essence of the deathless black snake will take over her and suppress the real Tallulah in her own mind. This is the result of the hexing Koschei has been doing on Tallulah for as long as she had existed. In chapter 8, we see in Tallulah's flashbacks that her reality was completely shattered at a certain point after seeing the cruelty of the Usus villagers towards the infected. The stress from Alina's death and combining the early reunion movement, along with the current boiling anger she feels at the injustice the infected had to face at the hands of the villagers, completely breaks her, and as a result, she massacred the entire village and burned it down. And it was in this moment of weakness that the deathless black snake was able to completely take over her and push the real Tallulah into the back of her own mind, a prisoner of her own thoughts. Okay, that was actually kind of depressing, but I think the context of Tallulah's situation is needed to understand what this theory is going for and Amiya's potential position. As we have all seen by now, the second anniversary CN stream revealed a new Arknights PV, and if you haven't, I'll have a link to the PV in the description showing us all the major nations of Terra, glimpses into the next arc, and most importantly, Amiya's past. However, the main thing that got me thinking was this picture of Amiya, who seems much older and mature than the current one. The most striking difference though was that this Amiya's eyes were pink instead of the mostly blue with a tint of red when she's using her powers. That got my zero sanity brain thinking. As we went through earlier with Tallulah, we know possession is a thing in Arknights and can happen under certain circumstances. So why can't the same thing happen to Amiya? This is what the PV seems to be implying. What solidifies it even more is the moment at the end of the PV, where Amiya's voice seems to warp and mix with Theresa's while answering Kausid's question.
しかし、君はどうする？私は理想の中に消えていく。でも彼女は朽ち果てるすべてを燃やし尽くす炎となるでしょう。
This could be interpreted in two ways. One, this could be a way of telling us that Theresa had said the same lines as Amiya currently to Kausid in the past, and she's being reminded of this in real time. Or, building up from the picture of this Amiya here, she has either been possessed before or is currently being possessed by Teresa while talking to Cowsit. From this, we can assume that Teresa isn't totally dead and will make an appearance in the future, either through whatever plans Teresis has for her body or through Teresa taking over Amiya in the future. But let's take a step back. Before that can even happen, we have to talk about how all of this is even possible in the first place. I'll preface this by saying that there's not much info on the specifics about the ritual used in this situation, or just about possessions in general, so I'm using Tallulah's experience as a base and building it up from there. Let's start out with something undeniable. In the past, Teresa had passed on her status and abilities as the Demon King to Amiya. I believe it was through this ceremony that Teresa had implanted her presence within Amiya, along with the power of the ancient Demon King. And while it isn't clear what Teresa's relationship to Amiya is, she had definitely spent a lot of time around Amiya in order to groom her to become her successor. This might also imply that Teresa had, stay with me here, brainwashed Amiya into thinking like her, which isn't that much of a stretch to say. Remember, Teresa most likely has the same power to influence others the same way Amiya did with Patriot. I mean, that's where Amiya got that power from to begin with. Teresa was also desperate to find a successor at the time, and this could have pushed her to using her powers on Amiya so that nothing can go wrong with the succession. The brainwashing also eliminates the problem Koschei had with Tallulah, where they both had opposing viewpoints, and makes Teresa's potential takeover of Amiya much less of a hassle comparatively. All of this might answer why some people who know of Teresa see so much in her in Amiya, W being a prime example. The talk about brainwashing also implies that Teresa had an ulterior motive for taking on a successor. While I can't necessarily say Teresa was a good person due to a total lack of information about her, I like to believe she was. Going with that, she most likely had no choice in the matter of succession regarding her powers. Her brother, Teresis, had started an entire civil war just to get her off the throne and had tried to hunt her down throughout its entire duration. His motivations for doing so are still not known, but I personally think he was going for the power of the Demon King that was inside Teresa and wanted a good reason to do it. This is made even more apparent as he kept her body after her death and is trying to potentially revive her to do something. Teresa would have known that she couldn't run away from Teresis forever, so she sought to hide the power instead. Searching for a successor along with the Doctor and Babel, she eventually found one in the ruined wreckage of a rim-billiton ship, a small cultist girl with brown hair named Amiya. Now we get to the biggest question in the room. Why? Assuming all of this is true, why would Teresa want to take over Amiya? And even if she wanted to, what's stopping her right now? I think the possession, in this case, is a looming side effect of the ritual performed when Teresa passed on her powers to Amiya. Like what was mentioned before in this theory, Teresa had implanted her presence within Amiya, whether unknowingly or knowingly. As Amiya uses more and more of the Demon King's power, Teresa is slowly starting to wake up and become aware of her situation. She might not have even wanted to put Amiya in this situation in the first place. Eventually, as time goes on, Amiya herself would be aware of Teresa within her. And one of two things could happen. Either Teresa will completely take over Amiya and use her body as her own, or Teresa and Amiya come to a mutual understanding and share the body, switching personalities when needed. I think the latter is much more likely to happen, as Amiya and Teresa are incredibly similar as people. and as a result of the potential brainwashing, and can easily overcome each other's differences when compared to Koschei and Tallulah. The rings that Khao-Zid gave to Amiya are also playing a role in slowing Teresa's awakening. It serves to hold back her true powers, lest it overwhelms her, and by doing so, Amiya can't use the Demon King's power as much to stir Teresa from her sleep. I wonder if Khao-Zid knew about this all along, and that's why she gave Amiya the rings. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. Now we have the potential fate of Amiya. Being saved and selected for a role she has no clue about, brainwashed and influenced from young by the person she was succeeding, being used as a vessel for a power beyond her comprehension, just so that another can't have it, and she would eventually have to share her own body or even be completely taken over by the very person that saved her. She really can't catch a break, can she?